We're live.
I've finished now. Welcome. I can still hear some delays, so a bit strange.
Oh, it's sometimes it happens. I just as you was doing that, okay. I tried it a different way. I'm sitting in the back, like by the back garden. There's a spider's web just going across the. So I focused on that with the sound and just the wind blowing it, and then just zoned out, and that was cool. That was nice.
Nice. And now, where's that coming from? Because I stopped the music.
I haven't got any music.
Okay. All right. Welcome to Spiritual Talk on Wave of Action. I'm David, and I'm joined by Chris and BT.
Hi. Hi, Dave.
Right. Do you know what? I've identified the problem. Do you want to know what it was?
What was it?
Okay. The link that you had, the live link through YouTube, I had that on as well.
That's what I thought. That's what I said to you, checking your links.
And so there's me trying to start it off all spiritual and stuff with a bowl and make it all lovely, and one made sort of IT faux pas. So yeah, it just goes to show that I need people like yourselves to help me out. It's like I'm back in the Dark Ages or something. So here we are, spiritual wave, and we're all very spiritual, and yeah, everything runs smoothly, but so, yeah, acceptance is the key. I've learned acceptance, and just let it all be. But yeah, cool. So you've been chatting for this past few minutes while I've been trying to get my stuff together, and yeah, so thanks for joining us. We've got Chris, I'm David. I've got my son George here. He likes a bit of meditation, don't you, George? He's nodding. And we've got BT, which often referred to as P. So yeah. I don't know. Would you prefer P or BT?
Everybody called me BT like in life, but P is what all the activist friends call me. So they're both endearing to me because neither's is really my name. So I like them both. My alter ego.
Right. Well, you can call me Dave or David.
David, yeah.
Or Buddha.
Buddha.
Well, you mentioned before we start getting really deep and meaningful. I actually wore my my jumper in aid of you today. It was in a homage to you, Dave. It was
me.
It says body of a god, and
Right.
it says Buddha at the bottom. So I'm wearing this just to get in tune with your Buddha-ness.
Thank you very much. And I saw you were in your garden today with some nunchuckers, trying to get spiritual with nunchuckers.
I used to train a lot, and the one thing that I used to gain when I was training a lot was a calmness, a peaceful state, and just talking to you, and obviously we liaise outside of what just normally in a normal communications. But it's very, very important, I'm finding, to try and find that balance. It keeps coming back to a balance, and sometimes with activists we fear what we've left behind. We don't want to go back to where we was. But sometimes there's things in your past that will give you a little bit of peace, and I used to do that for hours, just stand around and but yeah, man, just trying things.
I think what you're saying about activists, and there's also the more you dig and the more holes you go down, the more fearful you can become. And it's good to have that centering to put things in perspective, because if things are a reflection of ourselves and we put too much negative thoughts onto negative things, we risk manifesting negativity in our lives. So though it's reading all these bad stories that we see endlessly on our timelines, finding that balance to recenter yourself and get back to earth is quite a good thing, I think.
Absolutely, and I think the way I see it is you have stuff within yourself. Many people have within themselves that they need to see, and sort of to be able to move beyond. Sort of like habits, conditioning, ways of behaving and reacting. So fear and resentment and things like that, and you need to be able to see that clearly to move beyond it. And it's the same in our world. We need to see beyond the lies in the world to move beyond it and become, kind of ensure that this love that we truly are, and this peace that we truly are, can be made manifest in the world. Because if there's still ignorance in the world, people are objectifying each other, and treating each other as objects, which is what's happening in places like Syria and all over the world, and governments do it to their people. People are seen as just objects. Then that living in that kind of ignorance is bound to cause a lot of conflict. That's the root of conflict, of pain and suffering. And so finding that within ourselves, seeing what's true within ourselves as opposed to what's not true, balancing ourselves, centering ourselves in whatever way possible, and whatever works for us is really, really important. So then we're not kind of behaving and interacting on a level of ignorance. So we don't objectify somebody because they think differently to us, it doesn't mean to say that we're human beings. We get upset about stuff. We get up with somebody because they've shared some sort of idea that we think is completely nonsense or something we don't agree with. But I think cultivating this, seeing that there's some bodies that we can legitimately dehumanize, whether they be politicians or whether they be Palestinians. I don't think we can be doing that. It's we've got to recognise that even David Cameron is a human being. That doesn't mean to say we can't disagree. But yeah, go on.
I find it quite helpful that, with people like that, is I always try to think of the flaws in myself. But I can be ruthless if I want something, and I know that that's not a good quality, and I try not to be. But picking out flaws in other people, recognising the flaws within yourself, I think helps to keep the humanity bond between people, because we can all be a little bit selfish at times. We can all be grumpy, like you were saying, grumpy and things. And we have to recognise that sometimes the things that we hate most in others are the things that actually we hate most in ourselves.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that self-reflection sometimes is, if you see a trait that you recognise within yourself, then it's straight away that you become a little bit more defensive. But it just makes you look at yourself more.
Mm-hmm. So I think, the conversations we've all had before, P and Chris, about the importance of, having integrity within ourselves. If we're going to go out challenging some of the injustices, they need to be challenged. Absolutely, they need to be challenged. But yeah, we need to kind of, try and act on a basis of integrity, and not hate. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from with my activism. So you start from within, and then that kind of gets projected without. So yeah, cool. Right. Today, last week, we were talking about, you mentioned Jill Bolte Taylor, and I'd heard about Jill from other people that I'd spoken to. Jill was is a neuroanatomist, and she had a stroke some years ago now, and she was actually conscious throughout that stroke, and she's now since that time she's kind of been reporting back her experience, and it was I watched the TED talk, and I think, did you say you put the link on somewhere, P?
Yeah, we've put it with the description for this video, so it'll be with
cool.
the on YouTube.
Definitely
and
watch it.
Another one, a link to one of her. It's an hour and a half long with Oprah.
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I mean, I can't really do it justice, to be honest. So I would recommend that, if you haven't seen it, watch it. It absolutely moved me. This lady, was, by the end of it, it gets very emotional, really, really emotional, and it got me. I was walking out my lunch break earlier in the week, just watching it, and I just absolutely moved by it. So basically, she talks about how she had this stroke, and her left brain, because this hemorrhage was kind of cutting off the function of her left brain, she lost her language, and her normal cognitive function. The left brain is very much responsible for linear thinking, for concepts in how we deal with the world, and that meant that her right brain was still functioning, and she started to kind of lose this sense of like separation, and everything became so sort of fascinating, and when not seen through the kind of the lens of the left brain, which is how how we kind of experience things normally. What I want to do actually is read a little bit of the transcript, if that's all right. Hang on a sec, so my headphone come out. A little bit of the transcript, because actually, like I say, I sometimes in expressing this, I want it to be done justice. So here we go. This is part of what she was talking about in terms of what was going on in her brain at the time. So she says, our right hemisphere is all about this present moment. It's all about right here, right now. Our right hemisphere, it thinks in pictures, and it learns kinesthetically through the movement of our bodies. Information in the form of energy streams in simultaneously through our sensory systems, and then it explodes into this enormous collage of what this present moment looks like, what this present moment smells like and tastes like, what it feels like and what it sounds like. I am energy being connected to the energy all around me through the consciousness of my right hemisphere. We're energy beings connected to one another through the consciousness of our right hemispheres as one human family. And right here, right now, all we are brothers and sisters on this planet, here to make the world a better place. And in this moment, we are perfect, we are whole, and we are beautiful. My left hemisphere is a very different place. Our left hemisphere thinks linearly and methodically. Our left hemisphere is all about the past, and it's all about the future. Our left hemisphere is designed to take that enormous collage of the present moment and start picking details and more details and more details about those details, and then categorises and organises all that information, associates it with everything in the past we've ever learned, and projects it into the future, all of our possibilities. And our left hemisphere thinks in language. It's that ongoing brain chatter that connects me and my internal world to my external world. It's that little voice that says to me, hey, you've got to remember to pick up bananas on your way home and eat them in the morning. It's that calculating intelligence that reminds me when I have to do my laundry. And as soon as my left hemisphere says to me, I become separate. I become a single solid individual separate from the energy flow around me and separate from you. And this was the portion of my brain that I lost on the morning of my stroke. So then she goes on to discuss her experience. Sit down, George. She goes on to discuss her experience when she gets on a exercise bike, and she's got this pounding headache, and she's looking at her body, and she says, well, you know, what's this weird looking thing? You know, my hands look really big, and it was as though my consciousness had shifted away from my normal perception of reality, where I'm the person on the machine having the experience, to some space where I'm witnessing myself having this experience. So she's talking about how it's all very, very peculiar. Everything in her body slowed down. Every step was rigid and very deliberate. There was no fluidity to her pace. You know, and she lost her balance. She's propped up against the wall, and she looks down at her arm and realises it can no longer define the boundaries of her body. I can't define where I begin and where I end, because the atoms and the molecules of my arm blended with the atoms and the molecules of the wall, and all I can detect was this energy, and I'm asking myself, what's wrong with me? What's going on? And in that moment, my brain chatter, my left hemisphere brain chatter, went totally silent, just like someone took a remote control and pushed the mute button, and total silence. And at first I was shocked to find myself inside of a silent mind, but then I was immediately captivated by the magnificence of energy around me. And because I could no longer identify the boundaries of my body, I felt enormous and expansive. I felt at one with all the energy that was, and it was beautiful there. Then all of a sudden, my left hemisphere comes back online. It says to me, hey, we've got a problem, we've got to get some help. So it's like, okay, I've got a problem, but then I immediately drifted back out into the consciousness, and I affectionately referred to this space as La La Land, but it was beautiful there. Imagine what it would be like to be totally disconnected from your brain chatter that connects you to the external world. So here I am in this space, and any stress related to my job, it was gone, and I felt lighter in my body. Imagine all of the relationships in the external world, and the many stresses related to any of those, they were gone. I felt a sense of peacefulness. And imagine what it would feel like to lose 37 years of emotional baggage. I felt euphoria. So I'm sorry for that long extract, but you know, that really describes, you know, in a kind of, on the one hand, you know, a scientific explanation of what's going on in terms of the, you know, the neuroanatomy, and then a very heartfelt, powerful spiritual experience. And what I wanted to kind of do today was to play a guided meditation, which actually helps us to become more established in our right hemisphere. Because I experienced that. I experienced this in my meditations in the morning. I've been meditating for 6 years. It's called non-duality, where you do experience that lack of separation. And I'm not saying that you can experience that straight away if you've never practiced meditation before. And you know, Jill, she experienced it through a major sort of trauma, through the shutting down of her, you know, her left brain. But we can cultivate that. And she goes on to the end of this talk to say that you know, it's what if we could actually choose to step in our right brain, and that's what we can choose to do through meditation. You know, the mind can become silent. We can experience things without those layers of conditioning that we're taught from birth. We're taught from birth that we are this separate object, you know, perceiving an independent outside world. But all of that is taught to us. We're taught that our happiness is out there in objects. You know, I was watching this the movie, Consuming Kids, I think it's called. How, you know, children from a young age programmed to want stuff, you know, because they think their happiness is outside there. But actually, what Jill found, when all those layers of emotional baggage, of conditioning were kind of removed instantaneously for her, that peace and that euphoria was already present just in the direct experience of consciousness. So that's what meditation is about, really. It's kind of allowing us to just kind of come to rest and be as we are, without lots and lots of internal mental chatter and dialogue. So yeah, that's what I was hoping to kind of do today. Did you guys have any thoughts on that, or anything, or something you wanted to say in respect to?
I don't know how it would relate, but I watched this program about the brain, and there was this woman, and something wasn't connected correctly in her brain, so she had no dominance. No, the left side didn't dominate, the right side didn't dominate. So but her brains were constantly in conflict with each other, trying to get that domination. And to the point where she would physically hit herself. Her left side would come up and punch her right side, because it was physically trying to dominate. And I'm just wondering how that, you know, that there's so much about our brain that we don't understand. You know, we all hear left brain and right brain, and we know right brain's more creative, but you know, we don't know what, you know, how to like develop that to get that the dominant one. And I just found it really weird that the physical manifestation in violence from your brain not having dominance over one side or the other, because they were competing. But I watched.
Sorry, go on, B. No, go.
I watched it, and it was on spirituality, and it was about like the shaman and tribesmen and things like that, and how a lot of them have these visions and things when they're quite young, and they get quite frightened by it because they don't know what's going on. They hear voices, and you know, they go to the doctors in this country, they'll be told that they're schizophrenic. And they said that the one difference with the things in the villages is that you get mentors. You know, like a shaman would be mentored by somebody who'd gone through it before. And there was a man who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. He'd been taking a lot of drugs in America and you know, pharmaceuticals, but it just wasn't for him. And they got him meditating, and he went, I think, 10 days meditating solidly. But now he controls his schizophrenia with meditation, because he says it was more the imbalance of, you know, you can deal with it better, you can fix it if you actually get inside your head and think, what are these voices telling you? Now, I'm not a doctor to the point where I could, you know, diagnose what schizophrenia is and that, but I wonder how much, like, stress and mental illness can be treated by silent time and contemplation and meditation.
Absolutely. Well, even the National Institute for Clinical Excellence and various other organisations now are endorsing mindfulness, particularly as a therapeutic intervention, as a way of reducing stress. It is, you know, I think it's probably one of the most researched therapeutic interventions currently, and businesses are using, you know, drawing on mindfulness. I think Transport for London run a test. Some research basically on, and the research outcome is that 70% of people, there was a 70% reduction in sickness-related absence after these people underwent mindfulness practice. You know, so there is, you know, reams of evidence out there that demonstrates that meditation is good for our emotional well-being, and you know, and helps us to be more creative and more confident and more grounded. And I think, you know, if we, you know, if we can draw on those kinds of practices rather than sort of, you know, the traditional sort of pharmacological methods, which just like mentally cosh people. I'm not saying that there, you know, that there are, you know, situations where people need medication. But I think more and more now people are finding that the use of meditation is something that is is a lot more beneficial and has well, the side effects are increased peace, increased sense of well-being, confidence, high resilience in difficult situations. And I work for in a very difficult profession, so and it's a very difficult time, and so it's a vital practice for me to stay well. And of course, this is part of my activism is very much a part of my professional sort of practice as well. In terms of trying to cultivate social justice, and so yeah, it can be very demanding. And things like meditation is really important to keep us grounded and keep us well in our minds.
The interesting part that P said about like the right and left band and this person in constant conflict and the violent side of that, it just the one thing that I've tried to go back to is, like we were saying earlier, is and what I thought about is the Shaolin monks. These were monks, and they developed a whole new way of keeping themselves fit and defending themselves, but they became more and more spiritual through this practice. And it was like, now I'm going to try and go back to that. You passed on to me today, Dave, really something that was quite interesting, a new practice that was started in, was it 92, was it 1992 in China, and it was banned in 1999. I can't pronounce it properly, man.
Qigong, I think it's called Qigong. It's like a practice that's it's like a Tai Chi. But that one that I posted for you, I didn't actually look too much into it, but it all looked like good stuff. So you might have read more into it than I did.
Yeah, it was like the relation to that and Tai Chi is really, it's like a different form of Tai Chi. And I was like, oh yeah, I can, because I've been struggling of trying to get the time of peacefulness and do that, because I'm like a squirrel on FET sometimes, and I just go, I'm like, and I find it really difficult to just stop doing that. So trying to bring some kind of physical activity to bring me peace, I think, is something that I'm going to have to work with. I think that's where I'm going to find my calm and relaxing state, is when I'm actually doing something that is going to bring me. And I don't want to be violent. The conflict of interest. No, I want to be peaceful, but I might just have to get a little bit violent, and that's like kind of a bit icky at the moment. It makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Mm.
But Bruce Lee was very spiritual. Normally, a lot of them are with their chi.
If you carry on a sec, I'm just going to check that nobody's on messing with my bandwidth again. I think my son's just left. One sec.
Because a lot of his philosophies and talks and things, and a lot of most martial arts are spiritual. You're not supposed to go out attacking people. It's defensive, need be, but and your body's a temple, so you're keeping it in training and in health by exercise, and same with yoga and things.
Yeah, I found that when I was like training a lot, it was just like, but it's weird coming into activism, like, and you're trying to lose that kind of like violent. I don't want to be violent. I'm like, if I'm going to be a pacifist, then it gave a conflict of interest within me. I was saying, arguing with myself of like, can I do this? Is it really like, does it fit in with the way that I want my brain to work?
I think that's the key, is that, can I do this? And when you are trained and things like that, and you're faced in conflict, can you do this? It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get, any more involved. You probably be more disciplined, and you probably have a lot more control in that situation to just walk away, because you know that you can. You've got the confidence. Your body's your temple, and you just be, you could do so much, but you become the bigger person, I hope, and walk away. Obviously, if somebody's trying to stab you, you're going to defend yourself, but we all would. No one's just going to say hi.
It's about choosing your battles, I think. When you're kind of centered in yourself, you develop this wisdom to know when it's right to stick around and to challenge in the right way, without being reactive. When to defend yourself. I think Eckhart Tolle said, hello. I think Eckhart Tolle said something along the lines of, who knows what a person will do in a state of presence. So when we're centered in the moment, we develop this kind of intuition to know when actually, yeah, I'm going to leave this situation, or when to stick around and deal with it in a way which is spontaneous and in line with the current context, if you see what I mean, rather than based in actions that are centered around fear and the need to dominate. So yeah, cool. Right, so should we play this meditation? It's
Yeah.
It's about 30 minutes long, but I think it'll be really helpful to do, and I reckon the time will pass by pretty quickly anyway. Does that sound okay with you, or should I sort of?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
No, that's fine with me. I'm going to mute my mic. If Pete mutes the mic, then we just we can just hear that, and that'd be cool then, because otherwise we get sounds picking up when it's. I'll mute mine.
Right.
Go for it.
Should I mute mine as well?
No, if you mute yours, we're not going to be able to hear you, mate.
All right. Well, it's not me that's doing it. It's a recorded meditation. So cool. And this is by a guy called Rupert Spira. And I'll send the link. I'll put the link out. But it really just helps us to become established in this right brain, really, in helping us to presence ourselves in our current direct immediate experience. Because people are most often, distracted by, the left brain thoughts of past, future orientation, and this is about actually just kind of looking at, ourselves in presence, in awareness, in the present moment. And so here it is. Enjoy. We'll have a little chat afterwards and discuss how we felt throughout it. And it's okay to be honest about that as well. If our head was raging with loads of thoughts, then that's how it is.
In order to find out in our experience what is meant by the term non-duality, it may be worth exploring what is actually meant by the term duality. It is for good reason that this experiential understanding is called non-duality rather than oneness. What is this duality that is referred to, that reality is not? Duality is the belief and the subsequent feeling that our experience is divided into two essential parts. One part that experiences and another part that is experienced. One part that knows and another part that is known. one part that sees and another that is seen, one part that hears and another that is heard. Now this essential division of our experience into two parts is the fundamental presumption upon which almost all our thoughts, feelings, activities, and relationships are based. In fact, this division of our experience into two essential parts is considered to be so fundamentally true as to require no further exploration, and our culture is based upon this presumption. And this presumption is enshrined in phrases such as I hear the sound, I see the tree, I, the subject, the sound, the tree, the person, the object, joined together by an act of knowing, feeling, or perceiving. This is the essential formula of duality, and it is upon this formula that almost all our lives, whether we realize it or not, are based. The I that does the knowing, feeling, or perceiving is considered to reside inside here, a separate insider self that knows, feels, or perceives. And the object is everything else. That is, things, people, and the world. So let us start to explore this model of experience. We normally think that we experience a world. It seems so obviously true that we experience a world in the way that the world is normally conceived. But we never actually experience the world as it is conceived. We just experience our perception of the world. And by perception, I mean sights, sounds, tastes, textures, and smells. In other words, the five senses. For simplicity, let's just call that perception or perceiving. So ask yourself, if you have ever known a world independent of perception, that is independent of a sight, sound, taste, texture, or smell. And when I say ask ourselves this question, I don't mean to ask it intellectually or philosophically. I mean really explore your experience. Just let your experience range freely over the apparent world. For instance, the sound of the so-called plane, aeroplane. Thought conceptualizes this experience as an aeroplane, a noise at a distance from ourselves, but all we know of the aeroplane is the sound of it. In fact, we just know the experience of hearing. We don't really know a plane as it is normally conceived. We just know the sound of it. when we're going through this exploration of experience, what I hope is that on hearing these suggestions, we will refer directly to our experience, not to our ideas, but to our actual experience, and that there will just be a gentle yes, in recognition that what is being said is true of our experience. Just a simple yes, that's true. So that the aeroplane has gone, but we see a world. In fact, we don't see a world or a room. We just know our perception of the world or room. Check that this is true. It's very easy to check this. You can play devil's advocate with yourself and just remove the current perception of the room. If we had any experience of the room outside the perception of it, something of the room would remain when the perception was removed. But you remove the perception of the room vanishes. So see in this way that we don't really know the room independent of perception. We just know perception of the room. Now, if we've agreed in our experience that we don't really know a room as such, we can no longer say that we experience a perception of a room. We can just say we experience our perception. All we know of the so-called world is perception, that is sights, sounds, tastes, textures, and smells. Just check that out. We may be an astrophysicist, a microbiologist, a doctor, a teacher, a cab driver, a mother or a father. Whatever our experience is, just range freely over your experience and ask yourself, do I know anything of the world other than sounds, sights, tastes, textures, and smells? Not what thought tells us about our experience, but what experience itself tells us. So instead of saying, I know a world, see that it is more honest, more true to say, I just know perception. In doing this, we have taken just one step towards the reality of our experience. We've taken one step closer, as it were, not to making our experience different, but to seeing our experience in a different way. So now that we realize that we don't really experience a world as it is normally conceived, something made out of dead, inert matter, now that we realize that in fact we just know perception, let's explore perception itself. If our eyes are open, the main form of perception is sights. If our eyes are closed, it's sounds. Let's close our eyes and just be aware of sounds, which is mostly the sound of my voice or the chainsaw sometimes in the so-called background. So leave on one side everything thought tells us about what this sound is. And just go to your raw experience. When I'm not speaking, just use the hum in the background, the so-called background. What is this sound made of? Is there anything there other than the experience of hearing? So now we can come even closer to our experience. We don't know a sound as such, an object called a sound. We just know the experience of hearing. If we allow our eyes to open, thought says that a world appears, but experience says that seeing begins. We just know hearing, seeing, touching, smelling. We could just say, we just know experiencing. Again, refer to your experience. Do you know? Have you ever known? Or could you ever know anything other than experiencing? Play devil's advocate with yourself. Try to find something in your current experience, or in your memory, or in your imagination, that is made out of something other than experiencing. And now ask yourself, what is it that knows experiencing? Experiencing is obviously known. We are aware of it. What is it that knows experiencing? Whatever it is that knows experiencing is obviously our self, what we refer to as I. It is I that knows the experience of experiencing. Now again, staying very close to your experience, ask yourself, can I find these two parts? One, myself that knows, and two, experiencing. Are there two substances there? One, a knowing self, and two, experiencing. Don't think about this. Go to your actual experience and see what you find there. If we go intimately, or rather if we stay intimately with our experience, we don't find that experiencing is divided into two parts. One part that knows it, and the rest that is known. It is just one seamless, intimate substance made of the knowing of it. That knowing, the knowing with which experience is known, is your self, what we call I. It intimately pervades experience. But even that is not true. That suggests that experience is like a sponge that is pervaded by water. It's closer than that. There are not two things there in the first place, one to pervade another. There is just the knowing of experience. One seamless, intimate substance. Not two. Advaita. Now what are we going to call this reality of our experience? If we call it myself, we subtly suggest that there is something that is not myself. If we call it awareness, we subtly suggest that there is something that is not made out of awareness, that there is something. Whatever word we choose, we find that its opposite is subtly implied. We could call it life. But again, this suggests that there is a possibility that there is something that is not alive. Whatever word we choose is not quite right. And it is for this reason that the ancient sages, in their wisdom and humility, called this understanding non-duality rather than oneness. Thought can say what it is not what it is. Our language is designed to describe the illusion of duality. It is not able to describe the reality of non-duality. Now ask yourself, this one seamless substance, which we could call myself or experiencing, can it resist itself? How could something that is made of one substance resist itself? How could the ocean resist itself? How could empty space resist itself? How could experiencing seek anything? What would be the motive from the point of view of experiencing to seek anything? It would only find more of itself. The ocean searching for water. So how does resistance and seeking arise? Resistance and seeking is another name for unhappiness or suffering. All suffering is simply a form of resisting experience. No resistance, no suffering. So how is it possible for this one seamless substance to resist itself? It happens like this. experiencing takes the shape of thinking, which is just made of experiencing. And thinking imagines that experiencing is not made of one substance, but rather that it is made of two substances. One part that experiences and another part that is experienced. With this thought alone, which is itself only made out of experiencing, this seamless substance of experience is apparently divided into two parts, divided into two substances, a me part and a not me part. The me part is imagined with this thought to occupy this little corner of the universe called my body. And the not me part is everyone and everything else. With this thought alone, it seems as if the seamless intimacy of experiencing is divided into two essential ingredients. A self on the inside that knows, an object, other, or world on the outside that is known. Now, once this imaginary division of experience has taken place, it is possible for one part to resist another, for the inside self to resist the outside world, for the inside self to say, I don't like this. I don't like what is present. I want what is not present. That very thought is the activity called suffering, resistance and seeking. I don't like what is present. I want what is not present. But experience itself never says such a thing. Experience itself cannot resist itself. Experience has to first take the shape of a thought, has to first take the shape of imagination. And with this imagination, experience is divided into, apparently divided into two. Into an inside self and an outside world. This is what is called duality. It is the origin of all suffering. In fact, this belief is the activity of suffering. The separate self, the separate inside self is not, in fact, a self or an entity. It is an activity of thinking. The primary thought is this division of our experience into two parts. And this primary thought is later substantiated with further thoughts and feelings, which give the impression that this duality is real, solid, true. And by the time we are young teenagers, this view of experience has been so instilled into us, not only into our beliefs, but our bodies have been impregnated with the feelings that this is true. And it seems so obviously true until we have a clear, clean, simple, honest look at our experience. And this looking at our experience is finding our way home, as it were, retracing our steps back to the reality or truth of our experience. In fact, we don't go back to the truth of our experience. It was never truly veiled in the first place. Thought and subsequently feeling just seemed to veil the reality of our experience, in the same way that a three-dimensional landscape on a screen in a film seems to veil the two-dimensional screen, but in fact doesn't. When we go up to the screen and try to touch the trees and flowers and sky and hills, we don't touch trees and flowers and sky and hill, we just touch screen, one seamless substance, not a multiplicity and diversity of objects. So it's the same here. In our meetings, we go up to the screen. We go deeply into our experience and find out for ourselves what it is made of. And we arrive at this experiential understanding that there is no distance, separation, otherness in our experience. This absolute absence of otherness, separation, distance, is what is known by the word love. That is what we mean by love. The absence of the two, the absence of borders, boundaries, distinctions. We discover in our experience that love is the natural and ever-present condition of all experience, independent or irrespective of how pleasant or unpleasant that experience might be. And having discovered in our experience this natural condition of all experience, this intimacy or love, we then, abiding in that as that, we then cooperate with the colonization of our thoughts, feelings, activities, and relationships by this understanding, this realignment of the body, the mind, and the world with this understanding. The body, the mind, and the world have for so long been serving an illusory sense of an inside self and an outside world. Now this same so-called body, mind, and world are available to serve, to express, to share what we have discovered of the true nature of our experience. In other words, to serve, to express, to share love. And gradually, in this process, the old residues of thinking, feeling, perceiving, acting, and relating on behalf of an imaginary inside self are washed out of the system. The system remains. It is now available, open, empty, available to express the peace, happiness, and love that has been found at the heart of our experience.
welcome back. You there? After Chris?
Yeah, man, I'm here. I've got to stretch first. I know that, but that was really good.
You there?
Let me stretch.
Have you got dead legs?
Yeah, but it was. I'll tell you in a second. But that was part of the experience that was really interesting.
Nice one. Just being with that. Yeah, cool. You stretch, mate. You stretch.
Sorry, my son was listening to the music at the end with me.
Lovely.
He's enjoying it.
Nice.
It was very good.
Cool.
Yep, the feelings come back now. That was part of the experience. That was part of being at one with and yeah, man, that was really good. It was nice to that's the first time I've had someone guide you through a meditation. Excuse me, I'm going to cough now. and it definitely helps.
Yeah. I mean, what I find... Go on.
Okay, because you're not focusing on anything. The pain that I was feeling in my legs was like... That was the experience of what I was having, to try and separate, right, what is the experience and what isn't the experience, and then being at the oneness with that. What is that experience? What is it? What is it that I'm feeling? Is that the experience that I'm feeling of that? And going into it, and then it explains about the plane. And it's funny because just as he was speaking about a plane, I had a plane going over. Just as a freak thing, I was like, "Wow, okay." I drifted a little bit, and I felt myself starting to dribble at one point, so I had to snap out of it because I think I was very close to the edge of just going completely over. But yeah, it's so much easier when we've meditated before and we've done it outside. You forget about yourself, and you are completely with the experiences that you are hearing. But to hear someone explain to you what the experience actually is an experience, it kind of figures itself out, and you're like, oh, okay, I can feel this, but what is it that I'm actually feeling? What is it that I'm knowing? That all I'm knowing is the experience.
And this is a good thing about the Rupert stuff that I've been listening into the past couple of years, is that it removes those layers of conditioning of us. The mind thinks it's labelled everything, and it just kind of dismisses it as, oh, that's just a chair over there, that's the sky, and it separates everything up. But we don't realise how much our experience is conditioned. This sense of being a separate self inside this body is conditioned by the concepts that is they're all contained within the left brain. We don't realise how much it's conditioned by that, and then obviously the root of all that are the feelings of fear of what might happen to me in relation to the outside world, and all this projection about what's going to happen to me, future orientation of what might happen to me in the future. And these kinds of yoga sort of internal contemplations of actually stripping down your experience of what, like you said, what is it exactly that I experience? And so it takes you into sensation, into sound, into and what is it that is experiencing? Not an idea. Oh, well, it's my brain. It's this. It's that. No, go to that experience. Go to that experience of knowing. Does that experience of knowing have any edges? Does it have any boundaries? Don't refer to thought. And then when you go deep into that, you don't find, I can't find any edges or boundaries to consciousness. Try and in your experience find the line, the dividing line or the boundary to consciousness, and you actually can't find it. And it's difficult for people to understand that when you're coming from a left brain orientation, and it takes a bit of time just to kind of, like you say, to have somebody guide you through it, to actually see, well, what does my experience tell me? Not my mind, not the concepts that my brain is, the left side of the brain has been loaded with from birth, what does my experience tell me? And you know, after meditating for sort of 6 years, you know, I start to, then boundaries, then divisions, they just kind of melt away. And like this morning, you know, comes laughter. You know, I was meditating out by the sea, looking out at the sea, and labels just kind of drop. You know, it doesn't mean to say that thoughts don't come in, but you know, I don't get attached to them, and then just get this sense of like there's no separation between me and the experience that I'm having. So in effect, the I of consciousness is one, you know, it's a felt experience. It's not a, you know, a belief that I have. It's a felt experience, as all the sort of the concepts and ideas, they kind of just like melt into nothing. So yeah, I've had great, you know, experiences through the work of Rupert Spire, and he's got a website with, you know, all those kinds of meditations, short ones, long ones, that can guide you through, and they're free. And these ones you can pay for, but there's a huge amount that's free. So I can post that link for anyone that wants to get stuck into any of them. What was your experiences, P? Did you want to say anything? Or I can't hear you at the moment. I can't hear you either.
I was going to say for Chris, because he's not meditated a lot, it's very good to have like the voice to keep you on track. Because mindfulness is quite hard to get, you know, where you're not thinking about what the kid's doing in the house, or you've got to get the kids to bed ready for school tomorrow, you know, and just get into the moment. To have that voice in a calming manner take you through it in the early days is quite handy, I think. It's a kind of distraction for the left brain, if you like. You listen to that voice and you let your right brain go off.
Yeah,
I got visions and things, but I used to sit in medium circle, and we'd like meditate in a circle, and sometimes we would fall asleep. You know, you'd just be so relaxed.
I thought Chris was going to fall into the screen. I open my eyes from time to time, and I thought he was going to nod off into the screen.
I could feel myself going, but I was in the experience of what I was experiencing. Because like when I was, my legs were going numb, I could feel the numbness in my legs. So I knew, and this is really strange now, because I wasn't cold at all. I wasn't cold, I wasn't hungry, I wasn't feeling anything. But now I've come back and switched this brain back to where my conditioning is. I'm cold, I'm hungry. That's really, really strange, because I was like just away with it. And yeah, I did. It was close. Like I said, I was driven. I had to stop for a second. But it was getting into the experience of, right, so okay, my legs are numb, but I know this experience because it's telling me it's pain. But what is this experience of pain? What is this? What am I feeling? And then I started to actually drift. You know, the pain was not there. It was no pain. It was, that's just an experience of what you know is relative of pain. Forget that. Just leave it. Yeah, it was. Yeah, man. I was close, but I do feel myself drifting as you're finding a voice, a calming voice, just guiding you through. The guiding part has definitely helped. I think at some points I saw myself just like, not like away from myself, but just my eyes looking at me. You know, I could see just various images, but then once they'd gone and you try to clear that programming of the left side of the brain and just try to just experience the experience, then I started to become the experience of pain itself. That's like, okay, that's that. Forget about that and just drift away.
One of the bizarre things I had, I saw this man with a beard, like grey beard and grey hair, and he turned round and it was then it changed into Bill Oddie, and I was like, Bill Oddie? What the hell? I don't know where that got, it just popped up there. But I do, you know, I do get like visions meditating, because that's what I did for a long time, was to meditate to get visions. You know, so I do see things, and I'll have to find out what that meant. It will mean something. I've just got to find out what it is.
Bill's trying to speak to you. He wants you to save the birds, P.
I don't know if it was somebody who looked like Bill Oddie in it. The Bill Oddie come after to say he looks like Bill Oddie, sort of thing. Because it wasn't Bill Oddie to start off with.
Well, you could always say it was a goodie experience.
It was.
Very good. I'm trying to picture Bill Oddie now.
He looks like you.
He looks like you, but with hair and a beard. Same size, just rounder, just like, you know. Yeah, I had a couple of visions, but just like nothing like really. The plane one, I was drifting when he was talking about a plane. I started to drift because I actually heard the plane, and then that was like you were saying, what is the experience of that plane? What is it that you hear? And to have a sound that he's describing going on right close, because I've got the back garden right, you know, I wanted to be a little bit closer to other sounds. I kind of drifted away then, and it was like I saw clouds and just, but that then relative to the experience of what I experienced at a plane. I also thought of, well, vision came in of my relation to a plane, of where I've been on a plane, and what my relation to is the experience of a plane, of going to the airport, getting on board. You know, what are those experiences of the plane itself? Yeah, and then it was just a brief little time. I just drifted completely away to the sound itself and what that is relative to me. That's cool.
So that you can see how our minds create like stories about stuff, and so the mind will pigeonhole our experience and say, yeah, I know that, I know that, I know that. And like I posted something on Facebook earlier on in the week, you know, about, you know, just being for meditation down the seafront, and I just saw this glowing thing in the sky, and there was no sort of like internal dialogue or labelling of it, and it was just like experiencing as it was. But you know, that's kind of what happened for, I guess, Jill in her stroke. It was like everything just seemed so like mysterious and like awesome, because there wasn't the left brain internal labelling and dialogue and conceptualization that just frames our experience totally and normalizes everything. And this is what the potential for meditation does for us. It helps us to come more into the right brain, remove layers and layers of labelling and conditioning, and helps us to experience the world afresh and anew, so that then the responses that we come with, you know, in the kinds of difficult situations we engage with, you know, and the world issues, the world problems, you know, we can deal with that in a new, fresh and creative way, which looks for creative solutions that are outside the box, outside the old left brain linear thinking of you know, well, this is how things are and we've just got to kind of, you know, run with things as they are. You know, we've got the potential to kind of think in more creative ways and step outside of that and say, no, let's try this completely new, radical, different way of thinking, like a world without money, for example, you know, where everything's equally distributed. You know what I'm talking about here. You know, yes. It offers the opportunity to kind of really kind of boldly go, step out the old boxes of the mind and just say, yeah, let's do this. Let's kind of experience this world of, you know, of oneness, of lack of division. You know.
I saw when you just said about that, I saw a TED talk, and I've seen quite a few of them, of a lot of young, like, you know, these are kids and coming up with these amazing ideas. The kid that came up with the plastic skimmer for the oceans and stuff like that, you know, they've not got this too many preconceived judgments. They're thinking outside the box. They're being that creative. And when you say like a moneyless society, you mention that to someone else, their experience of they have no experience or idea of a moneyless society. They clam up. They become left brain. No, you can't do that because we need money. We need that. You can see that more relative now after that. Yeah, man, things have come a lot quicker after that. Just that half hour. It was a quick half hour. That was really quick.
It's I mean, like, moneyless society, I think, is all of our dreams, and like a young person full of ideas, they've still got those ideas and dreams that the workforce as it is today hasn't knocked out of them and hasn't stifled out of them, because it very much does. You know, if you go out, for example, I worked as a manager in Thornton's, and I did the window display all night for the Banbury town in Bloom, and they come down from head office, and we won. We got in the local paper and everything. The head office come down and was like, "That's not the standard store fitting, get it out." And it's like, you know, and that's just one example of a workplace that stifles creativity. And I think that younger people, you know, they have their dreams and aspirations that in a cashless society they would be given all the opportunities. You know, a child in Africa would get the education that a child anywhere else in the world would get, because it wouldn't be down to money. It would be down to, you know, good people teaching for the love. And I know a lot of people who say, well, people wouldn't work, but I think that the average person isn't lazy. They've got passions, they've got aspirations, they've got dreams, and they will work. Because how many people work 9 to 5 and then, like you're doing now, spend time doing something that they love for free, hours of it? You know, so that shows that we will work for nothing as long as we are allowed to reach our full potential and do what actually inspires us. And some people are inspired by mundane things, you know, so you can't say, well, nobody would clean the streets, because some people, their drive would be to have a nice neighbourhood. And they would go out, you know, like a gardener tends their garden and things like that. Potholes in the road would be fixed. There'd be a handyman. We've all got dreams and aspirations, and we could manage it a lot better than I think people think. But it's the left brain saying, oh no, we must have a little IOU that says, I owe you jack shit because you ain't never getting your gold or silver. You know what I mean? A little, you never cash in your IOU. You're never going to get it. And more and more people are waking up to that. The hypocrisy of the whole system.
I think that left brain thinking, that, like, you know, like that thought, that, you know, we started off with that discussion of, like you said, of the TED Talk and this neuroscientist, and like Dave said, honestly, it's a mind-blowing experience when you hear a neuroscientist that knew everything that was going on at that moment in time relate this experience to you. For me, as someone that's been quite cynical of you know, spirituality for a long period of time in my life, to hear someone that I would actually relate to as a scientist, I'm a very scientific person. I like science. It holds a lot of answers for me, I found. But to hear someone that I would, you know, hold in great respect and acknowledgement for our understanding of our academia, to explain this spiritual side of, look, this is this, I didn't feel anything. There's this whole other experience out there to be had if we could just shut this part of our brain off. That is a mind blow. That for me, and hearing the relative speaks that we're talking about now, and that experience, I can try to guide myself now to stop thinking with my left hand side of the brain. It's that you know, the one thing I've gained from talking to you, Dave, is that, no, let that go, and P and our other member of Wave that we have, you guys are very much that moment, that experience. Enjoy that experience. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. Enjoy it for what it is, and become that experience. Yeah, man, it's interesting time to just, maybe we got to think a whole paradigm shift is needed to try and get rid of our left hand side of our brain. Is there an operation for this? Can I go and get it on the NHS? It seems to be everything else.
I think it is rapid rapidly happening that people are they're seeking something, and they are turning to different, like, spirituality, you know, different ideas more than just Christianity and what have you. But I think that we can reach out to more people. But if we look at, like, Scotland, 45% of the people voted for freedom. You know, that was more against Westminster in the system, which shows a certain amount of awakening, because people, 45% were willing to take a risk of something new, whereas, you know, 10 years ago they wouldn't have been that brave. So I think that people are slowly, very slowly, they are waking up. People are searching, because desperate times make you search for more.
Absolutely.
You know, when life's a struggle, you want to know what life's about.
Mm-hmm. I think these difficult times do kind of, you know, certainly in, you know, traumatic experiences can kind of, like, force you into this different ways of thinking and different ways of being, you know, and so, you know, all the crisis and the austerity and stuff that people are going, you know, this world's going through, and you see all these kinds of uprisings and revolutions and protests. You know, it's demonstration really of this transcendence of the old ways. You know, the climate marches going on today, and the you know, it's Global Peace Day today. You know, so more people collectively get together to, you know, to kind of join together and step out the old ways, the old ways of living. You know, that's it's a beautiful thing.
Can I just say that Kiki is saying Kiki is the other member of the team, and she's not just the other member.
I was just got the message. I just got the message, and I was like, she's just ribbed me for it because I didn't mention it. Just absolutely ribbed me for it for a second, and I apologise. It was just, you know, our other, but, you know, Kiki's there, yeah, and, you know, these people that live in the moment. So yeah, look, right in the moment now, we was in the moment with someone else that wasn't there, and it was like, oh, well, I'm in the moment with you, just as I'm not there with you. I'm still in the moment with you. So yes, Kiki, we do love you. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
Cool. It's nice she's listening.
Are we kind of at a stage where it's a natural sort of
conclusion?
Conclusion, because
yeah,
the final part, I think I'll just read out, if that's all right, and then people can go ahead and watch that TED Talk for themselves if they so choose. I probably will do again. But what Jill says is, you know, she, after the experience or towards the end of the experience, she says, I'm still alive, and I found Nirvana. And if I found Nirvana and I'm still alive, then everyone who is alive can find Nirvana. I picture a world filled with beautiful, peaceful, compassionate, loving people who knew that they could come to this space at any time, and that they could purposely choose to step to the right of their left hemispheres and find this peace. We have the power to choose moment by moment who and how we want to be in the world, right here, right now. I can step into the consciousness of my right hemisphere where we are. I am the life force power of the universe, and the life force power of the 50 trillion beautiful molecular geniuses that make up my form. At one with all that is, or I can choose to step into the consciousness of my left hemisphere where I become a single individual, a solid separate from the flow, separate from you. Which would you choose? Which do you choose? And when? I believe that the more time we spend choosing to run the deep inner peace circuitry of our right hemispheres, the more peace we will project into the world, and the more peaceful our planet will be. And I thought that was an idea worth spreading. So thank you for joining in that idea and that experience with me, P and Chris. And Kiki, we're not forgotten about you.
Yeah. Bye-bye, Kinky.
Bye-bye, guys. That was awesome.
Bye. Thanks a lot,
Bye.
Dave.
Cheers, Dave.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.